Before starting the tutorial, make sure to download the assets found in the video description. We will be using these assets throughout the tutorial. Hello, and welcome back to my Premiere Pro Basics course. This is episode 4, and today we will be covering basic color correction. Let's get started. Now, if you go into the Google Drive folder, you'll see video 5, and we're gonna just go ahead and drag this folder right into the project. We can drag video 5 into the footage folder. And we're going to go ahead and drag one of the clips onto the timeline to create a new sequence. We're going to name this sequence color correction. And we're going to drag it into the sequence folder so we stay organized. Now we drag the CN Tower clip onto the timeline, but let's go ahead and drag the other ones on there too. Kensington Graffiti, Scarborough Bluffs, and Toronto Skyline. Perfect. In episode 1, we set up our workspace a certain way. If you did that with me, make sure to reset to save layout to make sure we're in the right place. But if you're using your own workspace, let's go ahead and just make sure that the lumetri color and lumetri scopes are open up. So let's click lumetri scopes here. Now, if it doesn't quite look like this, let's make sure some settings are open here. We want parade and waveform luma to be checked off. The parade type is going to be RGB and the waveform type is going to be luma, and you should be set to go. Now, the main part of the lumetri color panel that we're going to be using today is the curves. So make sure that is open up in your lumetri color panel, and make sure you can see both lumetri color scopes. So the first thing I like to adjust is the lighting. And the rule of thumb is to have the top of the lighting to be at max 100 and the bottom to be at max 0. And you'll see what I mean. So with this clip selected, let's start adjusting the curve. So if we bring the top here, you'll see that it goes up on the lumetri scopes. So we want it to be around here, just underneath 100. If we drag the bottom, you'll see that it starts to stretch out to the bottom, and we want to go down all the way to 0. These are just guidelines. These are things you can break later, but let's just learn the basics and then we'll work from there. So now that we are okay with how the lighting looks, let's adjust the color here. Similar to how we did the lighting, we need the red, the green, and the blue to be at max 100, max 0 on the bottom scale. We want them to be as even as possible. So let's just bring up the red to about 100. Make sure that it is right at the bottom here at 0. Bring up the green to 100. Make sure it's as even as possible. Bring that down to 0. Click the blue. Now we're going to adjust the blue. We'll bring it up a little bit. And then make sure it's down at about 0. Now that is just a basic color correction. We can actually alter it a little more under the basic correction and creative tabs. So let's say we want to adjust the contrast. So it's a little more contrasty. We can do that. See how that looks? Okay, I like how that looks. We can adjust the highlights and the shadows, temperature. If we go into the creative bar, we can bump up the vibrance and the saturation, or we can sharpen it a bit. So why don't we sharpen it at about 10? Let's bump up the vibrance a bit. Add a little more color. And overall, I'm pretty happy with that. I think that's a really good color correction here. If we go into effect controls, we can toggle it on and off to see what it looked like before. So that's what it looked like before. This is what it looks like now. So that is a nice base for a color correction. And then you can add a color grade on top of that. But we're just going to focus on color correction today. Now let's move on to the next clip, Kensington Graffiti. So make sure your playhead is over there. It's selected. We're going to go into lumetri scopes and we're going to do the same thing. So open up your curves and we're going to drag it up. Okay. And we'll drag it down so it's max 0. I think I could drag it up a little more. Now we're going to adjust the colors here. We're going to make sure that they're even. So put it right under 100 there. And put it down here, and I'm going to try to match the colors as best as I can. now that we are done adjusting the curves, I think we could bump up the contrast a little bit. Okay, I like how that looks. And I think we could bump up the colors a bit in the creative tab. So we could bump up the vibrance here, make the colors really pop here. That is very nice. Maybe bump up the sharpness. I think I'm pretty happy with that. If we go into effect controls, again, we can toggle on the lumetri color. This is what it looked like before, and this is what it looks like now. And again, this is just a nice base for a color grade that you want to apply on top. Or for people who want to go for the natural look, maybe this is enough for them. So let's go into Scarborough Bluffs. We're going to do the same thing here. Make sure lumetri colors is on. And you can see that it's already kind of at its max. It's already at about 100, so we don't need to bump up the curves a little more. So let's just bring down the curves here to about here. That's fine. Might actually bring down the curves a bit because it's a bit overblown in that corner there. Now again, let's play with the colors. Get it right at 100. Get it right at 0, and then try to match the green and the blue. This is just a preference to me, but this scene just looks a bit too cold for me. So we can actually easily adjust that by going into basic correction and adjusting the temperature. So I'm just going to make it a little warmer because I feel like it just looks a little more natural. I also think I'm going to bump up the shadows a bit because it's a bit too dark, I think. Yep, around here is nice. Let's bump up the contrast. And in your spare time, play around with these settings and see what you like. I'm going to bump up the vibrance, make those greens pop. All right, now let's compare. That's what it was before. This is what it is now, a nice basic color grade. Last clip, we have the Toronto skyline. I don't think this one needs too much help, but let's take a look at the lumetri scopes. So it looks like it could go up a little bit more. About here, bring it down a little bit. Okay. Now let's adjust the colors here. Bring down the blue a little bit because it's a bit too high in proportion to the other colors. There we go. Now I'm going to go into basic correction. Don't think it needs anything in this section, but I think I will give it a bit of a boost here. The colors really show. And I'm happy the way that looks just by itself. And again, effect controls, we can toggle that on and off. Not much of a difference, but I think we made the colors really pop here. And that's pretty much it for today's tutorial. We covered color correction basics today, and in the next episode, we are going to be doing a complete edit with all the stuff that we learned from cutting footage, adding titles, color correction, audio post, all of that good stuff. So stay tuned for next episode for your final test. Thanks so much for watching and have an awesome day. At You Want Pizzazz, we offer one-on-one sessions for Premiere Pro. If you want to learn how to do something specific, or you just need some one-on-one help, you can trust our team to help you. Please check out our website to book your first 1-hour session.